How important is your name to your identity? It's kind of an arbitrary label paired with certain sounds that are assigned to us, and then we bestow an enormous amount of importance to them.
True.
But in actuality, our names could have been anything. Welcome to Psych Papers, a podcast of bad content where we discuss psychological studies and conduct our own follow-up research. My name is Chris Cole. I have a PhD in psychology, and this is my co-host Joseph.
His friend.
Today's episode is all about names, the history of them, the cultural significance we've applied to them, and even which names most people would think would win in a fight. First, we'll go over the history of names, then we'll discuss my research on how much people like their names, does this change with age, and which boys' names and girls' names would win in a fight. In early human societies, names were not just labels, they were a fundamental part of identity. Names were descriptive, often tied to physical features of occupations, such as you could be named Curly if you had curly hair, or Strong if you had large muscles. Over time, as societies grew more complex, names took on new layers of meaning. They became intertwined with cultural beliefs, religion, and family lineage. The stories of our ancestors were passed down through names, preserving memories and tradition. Fast forward to the feudal era, where surnames emerged based on social status, occupations, and land ownership. The surnames Smith, Miller, and Baker all connected people to their roles in society, laying the foundation for modern-day surnames. Royalty and nobility also left their mark on naming. The names of kings, queens, and other influential figures shaped naming trends for generations. Even today, the names of famous individuals influence the choices parents make for their children. I know a lot of people named after their parents' favorite musicians, actors, or just celebrities in general. In recent times, names have become more about individuality and creativity. Parents select names based on personal preferences, meanings, or emotional connections. There's even a trend of naming people after their parents or relatives, giving them a version of kind of like symbolic immortality, so that their identity continues on. You know, you have like George the second, the third, the fourth, to kind of maintain that identity, living on forever almost. All right, we name everything. Besides people, we name pets, but not animals like livestock or research test subjects. They get labels, which I'll get into in a moment. We name vehicles like cars, bicycles, and boats. We name places like cities, towns, streets, and parks. Businesses, shops, restaurants, products, art, events, clubs, teams. Basically everything, right?
Yeah.
We name things that have significant value to us, which is also the reason why I mentioned that we name pets, but not animals, like livestock or research test subjects. And I think this is the difference between a name and a label. A label is just a functional reference that is generic and impersonal, whereas a name has personality. A name has meaning. There are connotations to certain names. There's cultural significance to names. There's personal meaning that people attach to names. People don't attach personal significance to labels. So there's this super interesting hypothesis in psychology called nominative determinism. So it's like nominate, but nominative determinism. Wow. That's a hypothesis that people tend to gravitate towards careers and personalities and life paths that fit their name. This idea suggests that there's a connection between a person's given name and their destiny or chosen profession. Now, while these connections are often coincidental or humorous, like the author of a book on polar explorations being named Daniel Snowman, or an article on urology by researchers named Splat and Weedon.
Nice. Sick.
The concept is still fascinating. The power that our names can have over us, or the power that our names can give us. One of the most egregious examples of this concept is the family of Robert Lane in 1958. Robert was plagued by the thought that names could influence a child's future. What kind of life could someone have with a truly winning name? So when he had his next son, he named him Winner. They were living in a subsidized housing project in Harlem, New York. And when Winner was 3 years old, a new sibling announced itself. The father asked his eldest daughter what name to give the baby, and she replied that they already had a winner, so why not have a loser?
Process of elimination. That's how you got your name, my friend.
So that's what happened. So with these names, you have certain expectations of how
Sure.
each should lead their lives. However, shockingly, Winner began his criminal career at 19, getting arrested for aggravated assault. He later earned himself a record of roughly 36 arrests for burglary, domestic violence, and many other violations. Loser earned a scholarship for a prep school in Connecticut, played football at Lafayette College, and joined the New York Police Department. He's stated before that his fellow officers feel bad for calling him
A
loser,
loser?
so he's often referred to as just
Like
Lou.
Lou? Yeah.
Yeah. So does the name given to a child affect their life, or are parents' lives reflected in the name that they give? So is a name merely a reflection of a parent's view of a child and their expectations of them? So I've kind of always been fascinated with names, and I've always been interested in the question, do people like their own names? We don't really get a choice as our names. Of course, anybody could change their name. And it's interesting. I imagine not liking your name has got to be really tough because your name is all that you've ever known.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to you. And to not like it, I wonder what circumstances would bring you to not like it. So I have been that weird guy at parties that's been like, so what do you think about your name? Do you like your own name? Because I think that's like interesting talk, and people are like, yeah, it's fine, I guess.
Yeah, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much do you like your name? Where 5, you very likely like your name, or 1 that you
Or do you
very
strongly dislike?
strongly dislike? Yeah.
Yeah. If you could just, if everybody just in the room, if we could just go around and say one at a time,
Hey,
scale of 1 to 5.
Can I get everyone's attention? I got these.
Oh,
surveys.
Chris is about to do a toast. Not this time, Janine.
All right. Just take one sheet, pass it around the circle.
Yeah.
I put some pens there on the table.
Mm-hmm. So instead of subjecting more people to my questions, I decided to just conduct research on it myself. All right, so I conducted research on names and people's attitudes towards names, their own and others. So, do people like their names, and which boys' and girls' names would win in a fight?
Nice.
So
these are 2 separate surveys?
These are 3 separate studies.
Ooh, okay.
3 separate studies. The first one measuring how much people like their names and does name length matter. Which boys' names would win in a fight and which girls' names would win in a fight. So these were 3 studies, each with a sample size of 500 participants.
Okay.
Yep. So with the very first one, 500 participants were invited to a study on names. I asked people, please enter your first name. And then I asked them, please rate how much you like or dislike your first name. Going from -3, dislike a great deal, to 0, kind of neutral, or to +3, like a great deal. And interestingly, most people, about 85.2%, like their names at least a little. So about 44% like their names a great deal. That was the maximum of the scale. But a lot of people had like moderate liking of their name. This means that there are still about 9% of people that dislike their name.
I want to know about that. I want to know what's the story with that.
Yeah. I think that's a really unfortunate thing. How much you like your name did not differ by gender. Males and females both like their names about the same. And there was no difference in name liking for younger versus older people. So your age doesn't impact how much you like your name. However, people with longer names like their names more.
Hmm.
Yeah. There was a significant positive correlation between name length, so the number of characters in your name, and how much you like it.
So how long is long? Like your name is pretty long if it's just Christopher
Mm-hmm. Yep.
around
So I
that
think the
length.
longest name was like 12 characters.
Okay.
I forget which name that was, but yeah, Christopher was up there. I think the reason that people with longer names like their names more is that I think longer names tend to be less common, making them more unique, providing more
Hmm.
individuality. They can kind of sound more elegant or sophisticated, or even have like symbolic significance, like
Hmm.
historical or cultural meaning. And they provide more nickname options. So it kind of gives you more flexibility to change their names as they mature or go through different phases of life. And I think longer names also generally draw more attention and are more memorable. So some of the longer names that people were a big fan of are Christiane and Francesco. Some of the shorter names that they themselves were not fans of were Amy and Jen. Which boys' names would win in a fight?
Oh, I like this one. Well, let's see what names we got here that stand out to us. There's Anthony, Brandon. Oh, Christopher, and right next to him, conveniently, Joseph.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh. And
We'll
these
see what the results are.
and these names
Who
are what?
knows?
Are these the most common names boys are
These are
likely to
the
have?
top 20 most popular boys' names in the US.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we have like Alexander, Andrew, Anthony, Brandon, Christopher, Daniel, David, Ethan, Jacob, James, John, Joseph, Joshua, Matthew,
Chico
Michael, Nicholas, Noah,
Jackages.
Ryan, Tyler,
His
William.
name is my name too.
I originally got interested in this after my research on which letters of the alphabet would win in a fight. Um,
Your string of violent set, your violent theme surveys.
yes, yes.
Which one of your family members would win in a fight? That's your next one.
Oh, maybe which president would win in a fight? And I show
No,
pictures of them.
I
Pretty
see you
good.
writing in our notion. Oh, this is
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
potential
Write this down.
survey ideas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wanted to examine how certain shapes of letters visually, as well as how different phonemes sound. I want to examine how we think of those and which sort of feelings that we associate with these everyday happenings.
Okay.
So I paid over 500 people to take a survey where I asked them this question 5 times, each time with random pairs of names. Money well spent.
I know. 500 freaking people. Jesus Christ. All right, well, let's go see these results,
Yeah.
Chris.
When I asked my friends, just casually, most thought that John would be the toughest and Nicholas would be the weakest.
Okay,
I
interesting.
tended to agree with them.
As you do with most of your friends thing, whatever your friends say.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want to know my opinion, ask what my friends think.
Oh, my back. My back pain. It hurts to laugh.
You ready for the top 5 toughest names?
I'm looking forward to a specific result, and I'll clue
Okay.
the listeners in.
All right.
There are 2 names here that stand out to me that I care about the most, and let's see where they rank.
All right. I know you're excited for Anthony. Anthony was the toughest boy's name, winning 64% of its bouts. Following closely, we have David, Michael, Brandon, and then James.
Oh, man.
It's kind of interesting that Anthony's the toughest name. I was thinking about this a lot. I was like, okay, why is that the case?
Why is that a tough name?
I was like, okay, well, it gets shortened to Tony a lot, which...
Hey, Tony!
Exactly.
You don't want to fuck with Tony.
Yeah, Tony Soprano, Tony Stark.
Tony Baloney, cheese and macaroni.
Yeah, there's a certain connotation of like kind of Tony, like tough Tony, you know?
Usually Italian, usually based in New York.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Actually, that is like sort of a stereotype.
It might just be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just embedded in pop culture.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm David. I'm also tough. Doesn't
Was he
I'm a
Israeli?
tough guy. I'm a tough guy as well. I don't know what that. I don't know what character I was trying to access there.
All right, bottom 5 weakest names.
Okay, I better not see my name in there. Go.
Boom. The name Noah was the weakest, winning only 32.7% of its bouts.
Poor
Going
Noah.
going going up in the list, we have Joshua, Ethan, Nicholas, and Matthew. Noah
Noah.
was the biggest drop.
No,
Yeah.
Noah's the biggest Chad in all of Bible history. He built a fucking boat. Not
Yeah.
only did he build a big ass boat, he filled that sucker up with one of every animal.
Yeah.
Not even
Yeah,
most
he did.
zoos can't fit two of every animal. Two, not just one, two of every animal.
Yeah.
And yet
It's pretty crazy.
history does not back up Noah in the
Nope.
modern times.
People always forget about the ark.
And the ark Noah's at bottom B.
All right, here are the final rankings. And we'll just skip to the top 5 by gender.
Joseph, in the editing, make sure you zoom in on where Joseph and Christopher are. Yeah, just highlight that sucker. Oh yeah, you see
Here are
that?
the final rankings.
Yeah, we're not looking at the other ones. I quickly scanned up, down, and centered in on Joseph and Christopher. And let's see that.
Hey, me and you are right in the middle. That's fine. Fine with me.
That is strange that we were neck and neck on this survey. That I beat you by.
Well, it doesn't matter. We were pretty close.
0.5%.
It's a rounding error, really, if anything. It should show you the integrity that I have with data.
I know you could have really.
Yeah.
You could have easily swapped. You could have made the smallest change, just literally swap 2, and it would have not made a huge impact to the results. Look at that.
Yep.
An honorable researcher, most likely to get beat up by the following names: Tyler, Daniel, and Joseph.
Yep. Hey, but if the guy's name is Noah, you don't have to worry that much. All right, top 5 weakest names by gender. I split it by gender. So what did females think of boys' names and what did males think of the boys' names that would win in a fight? Females were more likely to believe that Anthony was a tougher name compared to men.
Oh.
About 74% of women thought Anthony was a tough name.
Yeah.
Whereas 56% of men had Anthony winning its bouts.
Why? That's so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty big disparity.
That's a big difference.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that means that women have like a greater like accessibility to that connotation of maybe Anthony being like a, like tough Tony from New York.
Guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's interesting. I really racked my brain trying to think of why this could be the case. This pattern where females were more likely to believe that these names are tougher than men was the same for Michael and Brandon. Whereas for James and David, men were more likely to believe that these were tougher names compared to women. Which girls' names would win in a fight? I measured the top 20 most popular girls' names in America. Same deal. I asked them this question, paid 500 people where I asked them this question 5 times, each time with random name pairings. And Joseph, which names do you think would be strongest or weakest here?
I think strongest Hannah, because when I think of Hannah, I think of a female Thor, like Hannah, god of the mountain. And then weakest, I think Grace, because I'm such a feather, like a grace falling from the sky. That's what I think of.
Graceful, yeah.
Graceful, yeah.
Okay.
Soft name.
Okay. I'm not sure how I would agree or disagree with you because I already know the results. But to your point, a lot of people thought Jessica would be the toughest and Grace would be the weakest.
Okay.
All right, so the top 5 toughest girls' names are Brianna, Jessica, and Samantha. Brianna was the toughest girl's name, winning 62.2% of its bouts. This was much closer. You can see all these percentages are very close to each other. And then positions 4 and 5 were Taylor and Alexis.
You know, some of these names have like have overlapping male name equivalents to them, or can be shortened to sound more like a male name, like Sam for Samantha. Taylor's like a overlapping gendered name. Alexis could be Alex. Jessica could be Jess. And you don't want to fuck with a Jess. Let me tell you.
Nuh-uh. No, you don't.
I wouldn't. Jess is involved? No, thank you.
All right, bottom 5 weakest names. Grace.
Oh,
sorry, Grace.
Sorry, Grace.
The name Grace was the weakest. I like the name Grace. Grace did win only 33.7% of its bouts.
That's my sister's name, so I also like that name.
Yeah, well, she's a weak ass. She's a weak ass.
She can win a fight. I know my sister can win a fight, so.
Well,
I don't know about her name.
She needs to prove it to people. She needs to prove it to people. Then
she needs to raise the Grace name. She needs to go around kicking ass and
maybe Grace needs to hang out with Jessica, and Brianna more. Learn a thing or two. Going up in the list, we have Abigail, Emily, Ava, and Emma as the bottom 5 weakest names. Here are the final rankings of the strongest girl's name that would win in a fight, going from strongest to weakest.
Where's Hannah? Oh, Hannah was
position 14. All right, and there's one more interesting finding. When I broke it down by gender of the survey respondents, similar to what we did last time, I noticed a particularly big difference with one name. Now it's for Taylor.
Taylor? Tay-Tay?
Women think Taylor is significantly tougher than men do. Again, I don't know where this is from. I can think of more cultural connotations for Anthony than I can for Taylor. Maybe Taylor just sounds like Tony. Maybe Taylor and Tony need to like open a restaurant together.
Taylor and Tony.
So what? So what did we learn?
I don't know.
I don't know what we learned, Joseph. I don't know anymore.
What can we take from the survey?
We learned that most people like their names. This is a good thing. This is a good sign. 85% of people like their names at least a little bit. 44% of people like their names a great deal. Unfortunately, about 9% of people dislike their names. So that's unfortunate. I feel bad for those people. I do. People with longer names tend to like their names more. We know that names have different perceptions of toughness that are somewhat fairly consistent. People kind of generally agreed on certain names being tougher and certain names being perceived as weaker. And we've also learned that these different perceptions of toughness within names can differ by gender. Whatever is going on there, I don't know. That's for follow-up study. All right, if you're still listening, thank you so much. We really appreciate you guys. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.